Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Sabrina with the blog Held Fast Home. A couple weeks ago, we seed started a few cool weather crops and some summer plants that take a bit more time to fully mature. Today, we are up potting them. Beginning with peppers. I have an 18 cell tray here that we are going to be up potting the peppers into, one in each container. So we'll have 18 pepper plants for our summer garden. Starting with our Jimmy Nardellos. In each of these cups are 3 pepper seedlings that need to be separated and up potted. These pepper roots teased apart so easily. After removing the soil block from the cup, I gripped the plant near the base of the stalk and gently pulled it out of the soil block. It did not fight me at all. To transplant the seedling into its new home, I dug a tunnel in the center of the soil in the new pot, placed the plant into it, and backfilled the hole with more soil, then topped off the pot with enough dirt. Next, we have our shishito peppers, and we are following the same technique to separate and up pot. My previous experience up potting plants has been primarily with last season's tomatoes, which did really well with it. So I felt emboldened to separate and up pot nearly everything else this season. And I'm impressed with how well every plant has taken to it, especially the herbs, which we'll get to later in this video. I was expecting a few losses with the herbs, thinking that they may be a bit more fragile, but they weren't negatively affected. In fact, they seem to enjoy being up potted and are thriving in a bigger space. Here we have our shishito peppers. To quickly touch on germination information, we only had 1 seed out of 24 that did not germinate, and it was one of our yellow Bikino pepper seeds. Our peppers germinated primarily 10 days after their planting, with only the yellow Bikino pepper seeds sprouting 11 days after planting. Since these Bikino peppers were the last peppers to germinate for me, they're a little on the smaller side, but they took well to the up potting. I had a few extra shishito and Bikino peppers, so I up-potted them to 1 in each compostable cup. These extra seedlings are being given to fellow gardening friends. Moving on to up-potting our herbs into not your typical seedling pots. I saw the channel More Than Farmers use their old strawberry containers for their seed starting and thought this was truly genius. I chose to cut off the lid since I don't employ the greenhouse effect method in my seed starting. I also have a cream cheese tub here, and later you'll see a sour cream container, both of which could probably use some drainage holes, but I didn't think of that until they'd already been filled with plants. Starting with Munstead lavender, we are up potting this lavender into a strawberry container. I originally thought to only place 4 plants into this container, but then I transplanted 6 because I love lavender and hope to cultivate a hedge of it within our ornamental tea garden beds that frame around our house. One characteristic of these herbs that amazes me nearly every day, despite their size, is that they are already fragrant. If you brush a true leaf with your fingers, the scent of these herbs lingers. I don't know why I was so amazed by this. Maybe I thought their scents developed when they were more mature, but I thought I'd share. The lavender I planted does recommend cold stratifying it prior to planting the seed to aid with germination. However, I didn't do that. My seeds are kept in our walk-in pantry, which is a room that is pretty cool in temperature, so I chanced that that was cool enough for some chill time and then directly planted them from the seed packet. Out of the 8 seeds we planted, 7 germinated. Next, we have basil, Italian Genovese and lemon basil going into the other strawberry container, 4 Genovese and 2 lemon. Technically, it's not necessary to separate 2 basil plants. They don't mind being planted right next to each other. A single basil plant will get bushy on its own, but if you don't have the time to separate them, they'll thrive planted close together too. Next season, I'd probably wait to start my basil when I start my tomatoes, since basil is so easy to seed start, and it'll require more effort to keep up potting after this until the weather is warmer. Next, we have 4 rosemary plants going into our cream cheese tub. When separating these herbs, I'm definitely being cautious and intentional with doing as little damage to the roots as possible and trying to leave as much of the root ball intact as I can. Despite the small size of the foliage above ground, these herbs have surprisingly developed root systems. Just try to follow the natural path of the roots and the way they want to separate. Don't force it. Then we have 2 true Greek oregano seedlings being uppotted into each of these brown pots. Separating the oregano was a little more intense since I planted so many seeds so close together, and they created this matted soil block. Some unavoidable damage was done to the roots since they were so interwoven, but I did manage to separate 8 individual starts that are now thriving. I saved 4 for myself and am gifting the rest. Next, we are rehoming a cabbage plant into this sour cream container, and the second start will remain in its original vessel with a soil refresh. If you notice the roots wrapping around the soil block from this cabbage, you can tell this plant was ready for an upgrade. I also uprooted English thyme, pearl yarrow, and German chamomile, all into these repurposed half-gallon milk cartons. Here is an update on my cool weather crops that I uppotted 2 weeks ago and which I'm hoping to plant out next week. How is your seed starting going this year? What are you most excited about growing this season? Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.